Wow. Hey everybody. So I just saw The Revenant, and I know this review is coming in late, but I just got to see it tonight. And so I wanted to review it. I hope you guys enjoy. It was directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, and he's best known for directing Birdman, which I still have to see. I know. I should have seen it by now last year, but I will get to it. I promise. It was written by Alejandro Inarritu. I hope I'm saying that right. Inarritu and Mark L. Smith. It takes place in the 1820s, and it's about these frontiersmen that are collecting furs for trade and surviving the harsh conditions. So I have a bunch of notes here, and I purposely spent a lot of time on how I wanted to word my notes because I felt the movie deserved my full attention. So I did spend a lot of time writing how I wanted to say things. So if it looks like that I'm reading something, it's because I'm trying to remind myself constantly of how I was wording it while I wrote it. So the movie is starring Leonardo DiCaprio. He plays Hugh Glass, who's a guide for all of the fur traders and hunters. Tom Hardy plays John Fitzgerald, who's one of the main trappers. Donald Gleason, he plays Captain Andrew Henry. He's the expedition leader. I also really liked him recently in Ex Machina. He was great in that. And he's in the new Star Wars. He plays Hux, General Hux. Will Poulter, Bridger. His character's called Bridger. He's a young trapper. The last time I saw him was in the Maze Runner. The Maze Runner. I didn't see the Scorch Trials, but he's in the Maze Runner, and I thought he was good in that, better than I expected, and he is really good in this and deserves to be recognized for it. I really think that this is a young actor that we're going to see come up and coming. Also, Forrest Goodluck, who plays Hawk, which is DiCaprio's son, and he too did a great job. Him and Poulter both. And I would love to see Forrest Goodluck in some more stuff too. I mean, I think they're great actors, great young actors. So as a quick summary, I don't want to give too much away of the story, so there's no spoilers in this. But Glass, DiCaprio's character, he's mauled by a bear and is severely injured, and he needs time to heal. So the group is trying to take him back to camp, but they're having a difficult time doing it, and they can't really take him. And they need to, I guess in a way he's dragging them behind, but at the same time they can't leave him to die. So what they do is they leave a few people with him while he has a few days to heal. The group can get back, and then they will follow. So they leave Fitzgerald, which is Tom Hardy, Bridger, and his son Hawk. Fitzgerald doesn't believe he's going to survive. He has this thing stuck in his head that he's going to die no matter what, and that it's basically a waste of time that they're trying to keep him alive. And in a scuffle of him trying to basically bury him in the ground, he gets in a scuffle with his son Hawk and ends up killing him and leaves. Kind of tricks Bridger into thinking that there's no hope for him, and since Bridger's a young trapper and can't really fight against Fitzgerald, he goes along with it, but you can tell throughout the whole movie that he's stuck with that decision and has a hard time living with it. So the rest of the tale is about survival and eventually revenge. That's all I'm going to say about where the story goes, because you really need to watch it. I don't want to give too much away. So there's no such thing as a perfect movie. If you're looking for it, there will always be something to complain about. What makes a movie great is if they can overcome those obstacles and still be a good movie. To nitpick, I would, and give it some criticism since I am being a movie critic right now, I would say that the movie was too long, and it was longer than it needed to be. You could have cut down some of the scenes and still have the same effect, but that would really be the only thing. There are backflashes in the movie, and I'm not a fan of backflashes. However, in this movie, it has a purpose. It goes along with some characterization. So the only time we get backflashes are with Glass's character, and they make sense because he's close to death constantly, and so it's more of like when you're dying, you get you see the life flash before your eyes kind of thing, and so he ends up getting these backflashes of, his wife and his kid and the village they lived in getting killed, and him being one of the only survivors with his son, that kind of thing. So it went along with the characterization of Glass, and it didn't distract too much from the entire story because they didn't do it that much, and when they did do a backflash, it was pretty quick. So it wasn't like a backflash that took a long time, and then when you got back to the real story, you didn't know what was going on. It made sense, it was quick, it was okay. Technically speaking, from a film perspective, this has got to be one of the most difficult shoots I've ever heard of. So it was mostly filmed in Alberta, Canada, with some shots in Montana in the US, and then in Tierra del Fuego, I hope I said that right, in Argentina. And it was filmed entirely in natural light. That surprised me. They went way off the beaten path, nowhere close to a hotel, and it shows. It was one of the most beautifully filmed movies in nature I've ever seen. If you just took the story away and just showed the scenes of nature that they had, it would look like a documentary. So when I first heard that Alejandro was going to film in natural light, I had reservations, and then I had backflashes to the 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas, and their failure to film with firelight during the night shoots and cave scenes. The firelight wasn't enough, they didn't do well with it, and it looked so dark it was hard to tell what was going on. It was just bad. And so I was like, oh, please don't do that again. But after seeing what Alejandro did, I totally understood why he wanted to use only natural light. The reason being his film, the way it was filmed, it had such a crispness to it that you could only get with natural light. If you tried to backlight things or forward light things from the camera, it wouldn't have the same feel of nature that it does if it was filmed naturally lit. And so he did the natural lit so that the nature looked crisp and clean and beautiful, and then used that for the story to make the story feel real. And it worked. I have to give him huge props. I don't know how he pulled it off. I mean, just after watching it, I'm like, how did he pull off some of the lighting that he did? It must have been just the placement of the camera to where the sun was. I mean, a lot of it was so beautifully shot. He had to know exactly where the sun was going to be. And from what I hear, they only had about an hour per day of useful light for shooting. So they would rehearse the scene that they would be filming that day for most of the day, and then try and fit it in that 1 hour that they had of actual shooting. Which, that is insane. I've not heard of anyone shooting that way before. It's crazy. But it comes across on film. I mean, it looks amazing. Just visually, it looks amazing. Also, because it's filmed that way, and you get the establishment of how crisp nature is and how realistic it looks, that when they get to the CG parts, which are not very many, most is done practically, but when they get to some of the CG parts and some of the violent parts, which are not like, slasher movie horror violence over the top. It's very realistic, guttural violence. But because of the way it was shot in natural light and the nature looks so real, when you get to that violent, it makes the violence even more violent than it should be because it looks real. Like it looks like that's what would really happen. And when you do that, it feels more violent than if you just blew someone's head up with a shotgun. Even though technically that's more violent, it just doesn't look as violent because it's, special effects violence. But the violence in this movie looked very real and possible, and how it would look if it actually happened, that it feels more violent to the viewer, even though it technically isn't. There were these really long, uninterrupted shots with amazing scale and scope. And there were some edits in there. I could see some edits for some of the long shots, but they were more blends to get from one long shot to the other to make it feel like an even longer shot. So it wasn't like a quick edit or anything where it's obvious that they did an edit. They worked hard to make those edits blend in so that the shot felt as long as possible, as if it was filmed with one camera the entire time, which most of those scenes were, but there were some technical points where you could tell there it would be impossible to move from that 5-minute sequence to this 5-minute sequence, that there had to be a blend to change the camera and the position and whether it be moving on a truck or not, that kind of thing. But they blended it so well to try and make it feel like one 15-minute shot instead of 3 5-minute shots. And when they did that, it made you feel like you were in the middle of what was going on, like you were floating around in real space and just observing it. You've all heard me rant about shaky cam. I absolutely hate shaky cam. I cannot stand shaky cam. I believe that shaky cam is a technique for lazy filmmakers. It means that the director is unable to construct a believable sequence, and therefore they have to shake the camera to distract from his mistakes or bad planning or bad fight scenes. Like they just didn't want to plan it enough. They decided to just quickly do it and then shake the camera so that you didn't notice their mistakes. So I hate shaky cam. Whenever I see it, I think, oh, well, that director didn't care. Even though they probably did, I cannot stand shaky cam. Well, the Revenant proves me right. There is no shaky cam. Alejandro purposely kept the camera as smooth as possible, which pulled the viewers into the scenes. Instead of shaking the camera to make us think something was going on, you didn't need to use your imagination when watching the movie. Alejandro did all the work for you, spent all of the time planning to make it work, so that all we had to do was sit back and allow his vision to engulf us, instead of us having to try and approve what was being shown. And the lack of shaky cam proves that. Oh, I hate shaky cam. Thank you, Alejandro. I love you. You're awesome. Please continue to direct that way. I will watch all of your movies. Another fear I had going into this movie was that it would be another cowboys and Indians type story with stereotypes that would distract from the realism of the trailer that was promised to us. Those fears were put to rest pretty fast also. It's not a movie about cowboys and Indians or American trappers versus French trappers. It was really a movie about humans in situations that affected them and how humans would react, regardless of who you were. I didn't see a group of Indians killing white people, or white people killing Indians, or Frenchmen killing Englishmen, blah, blah, blah. What I saw was a group of humans trying to save one of their daughters and protect themselves from invaders of their land that have previously proven that they're a threat. I also didn't see trappers killing each other like the Treasure of Sierra Madre. I saw humans making impossible decisions based on their situation, on survival and having to deal with their choice. One of the most beautiful character moments for me was when Glass, Leonardo DiCaprio, and a Native American that helped him out. There was almost no dialogue there, very little dialogue, and I witnessed human compassion and friendship on a very raw level. Skin color and nationality didn't matter. Both were just trying to survive, and they had compassion for each other situation. And what made it even better was that there was little dialogue. The humanity wasn't limited by their speak, even though they could speak to each other. But Glass had his throat hurt from the bear, and so he had a hard time speaking. He could speak, but not very well. And a lot of those scenes together with them, without the speech, like sticking their tongue out and catching the snow and laughing at each other, even though their situation was dire. It reminded me a lot of Enemy Mine from 1985. It's a great sci-fi movie, has the same kind of theme. I think you should watch it. It's a great movie. Now, on a side note, I think this movie is a pure American movie. So I'm not proud of our country's history. I can't change that. But I am proud we are currently a collection of cultures. I love that we are a melting pot. And this movie was also a melting pot. You had Hollywood actors, British actors, Australian actors, Native American actors, and masterfully directed by a Mexican director. To me, America is a melting pot, and this movie was a melting pot of all kind of talents from all over the world, and it worked beautifully. I foresee this movie winning all kinds of awards. I will predict now that the moment The Revenant comes out on Blu-ray, that it will instantly become part of a film students' curriculum. I think next year you're going to see it on their curriculum. It's going to be a movie that's taught to film students for years to come, and it deserves it. I love this movie. It has its flaws, but all movies have flaws. All in all, I think it's one of the most masterfully crafted movies I've seen in a long time. Alejandro, you are awesome, and I will watch all of your movies. Thank you. If you like my review, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and I will see you guys on the next video.